Joined now by the author of the upcoming book, Saving Nine, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee who once clerked for Justice Alito, Utah's Mike Lee. Senator, good to have you with us tonight.
Thank you, Shannon.
Okay, I want to start. There are those who are looking at this as a leak that they see as potentially beneficial. Brian Fallon, who is famously with Demand Justice, says, is a brave clerk taking this unprecedented step of leaking a draft opinion to warn the country what's coming in a last-ditch Hail Mary attempt to see if the public response might cause the court to reconsider. You've clerked there. You know the sanctity of the court and the fact that these justices protect and defend each other. What do you make of this leak tonight?
Yeah, Shannon, this is a night of sharp contrasts. This is bittersweet. On the one hand, it's sweet because we're finally vindicating the Constitution and the babies who have been unprotected by the law because the Supreme Court of the United States has told states that they may not protect unborn human life. That's the sweet part. The bitter part is the way this was leaked. This was an utter disgrace in terms of how it was released. This entire kerfuffle has been brought about as a result of an unscrupulous person trying to subvert 235 years of tradition, trying to subvert the way the Supreme Court operates. As a law clerk to Justice Alito, I've never been more proud to have worked for him. And I'm saddened by the fact that his work was released without authorization prior to his time of release, specifically for the purpose of threatening, intimidating, and harassing those justices inclined to go along with what appears to be the majority opinion.
How worried are you now about those justices that we think have signed on, and we don't know, the names aren't on there? This is far from being a final opinion. A couple of months' time at the court, drafts going back and forth, votes potentially changing. We could end up with something much different than what we're seeing allegedly written by Justice Alito tonight.
We could, but I don't think we will. And I hope and pray, Shannon, that this, in fact, reflects the actual majority opinion. And I believe that it should, for the simple reason that Roe versus Wade was infirm as a constitutional matter from the very beginning. Look, even when you take away all moral issues associated with the taking of an unborn human, take away all those for a minute and just look at it from a sheer constitutional perspective. This was never appropriate for 9 lawyers dressed up in robes to take these decisions away from the people's elected lawmakers in all 50 states. So this was a huge victory, and I don't believe that any of the justices who signed on to what appears to be a majority opinion to the court are going to change now in response to this horrible, dastardly, cowardly attempt to threaten, intimidate, and harass them into doing something else.
Well, there are even those on the left who, including Justice Ginsburg, felt like there were flaws with the way that that Roe was decided, and that it potentially left it open to being overturned at some point. So it's not just folks on the right who thought that the underpinnings of Roe may not hold up to tougher judicial scrutiny. How important is it to you as a senator, as somebody who's clerked at the court, who understands its importance, that we find out where this leak came from? CBS is reporting the FBI may get involved. What does the chief do at this point? How does this get handled?
This is absolutely important that we find out who did this and that they receive the appropriate amount of discipline and justice. I have questions about whether that person should ever be allowed to practice law. That's something that will be worked out in due time. But I do know this, Shannon. These are very small circles. As a former Supreme Court clerk, I can tell you there are very, very few people in that entire building who had access to the opinion. And I'm virtually certain that there are a number of people inside the court right now who have probably figured out who it is. That person needs to be brought to justice and held to account for what they did here. Look, this is just the first in what I predict will be a series of other attempts to delegitimize the Supreme Court of the United States in the coming months. This is why I've written the book, Saving Nine, because I think their next step is going to be to pack the Supreme Court. They're going to threaten to pack the court, adding additional seats. They're going to do things like this, like leak decisions in advance. This has never happened before, Shannon. This is completely unprecedented, and it's completely unacceptable.
Yeah, I got to say, I never thought that I would see this day, because the court is very, very tightly locked down, especially when it comes to releasing these opinions. And again, we got to wait for the official one. I got to ask you, what do you think happens now? Because We expected this is potentially a landmark opinion that could take well into the end of June, the end of the term, so that if there are dissents and concurrences and other changes to potential drafts, that it would be something that would be exceptionally well-versed and vetted before it gets to final form. What do you think the chief does now as far as the timing of getting this done and getting it out the door in whatever form it ends up being?
You know, there's a part of me, Shannon, that wonders whether they'll try to accelerate the release of it. Now that it's been leaked, if it in fact represents where a true majority of the court stands, I suspect the court would be well within its right and probably well advised to tell each member of the court, all right, you're going to have to get your ducks in a row here. You're going to have to decide which opinion you're signing on to and get that finalized by the end of this week. I think that's the only appropriate response here, because otherwise what you're doing, if you allow this to sit out there, you're allowing this kind of tactic to work, and you're incentivizing future unscrupulous leftist law clerks with an agenda to try to release opinions like this with an eye toward improperly influencing justices. That cannot happen, Shannon, and that's why, while the court will do what it sees as best, and it's not my place to tell them what to do, what I would suggest if I were in that position, or if they were asking me, is to say, we're going to release it this week, because this sort of thing can't be incentivized.
Okay, let me ask you from the political standpoint, the Democratic Senatorial Committee that is about getting more Democrats elected to the Senate says if this report is true, this Republican attack on abortion access, birth control, and women's health care has dramatically escalated the stakes of the 2022 election. At this critical moment, we must protect and expand Democrats' Senate majority with the power to confirm or reject Supreme Court justices. How much do you think that this is going to potentially impact the midterm elections? Democrats are going to paint you and other Republicans as extremists on this issue and potentially rally their base in a year that they need that.
Yeah, you know, I think they're going to try to do that, and I think they're going to overreach. They can't help themselves in that regard. They've proven that time and time again, and I think that's going to make things even worse for them. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to see more Republicans in the United States Senate, not in spite of this, but because of it, and because of the overreaction by the Democrats. Again, they're going to try to delegitimize the Supreme Court. They're going to try to interrupt its procedures. They're going to try to threaten, intimidate, and harass individual justices. Then they're going to move on to proposing that we pack the Supreme Court. All these things will prove disastrous as a matter of policy, but also politically for the Democratic Party, as well it should.
All right, Senator Michael Lee, thank you for your time tonight. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And you've been looking at a live look there at the Supreme Court where they've put up barricades. There are folks. It seems rather peaceful in that there is shouting back and forth, but nothing beyond that we've seen tonight. But crowds showing up there as this news gets out. We have crews there monitoring it, and we'll bring you some scenes from what's happening there tonight.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.